All right, what is going on, guys? Just finished up a workout on the Total Gym and some other stuff I'll be reviewing in the near future. Thought I'd kind of share this video with you. I've been meaning to kind of share with you from some time. This is, again, very informal. I will put some timestamps down below to kind of summarize my thoughts. You want to jump to certain sections. As you guys can see in the title of the video, I'm basically going to share with you guys kind of a synopsis on what I learned over these last 3 years working out at the Total Gym, because I just had somebody ask me the other day. I get this question asked all the time, and that is, can you really build muscle on this? How long have you been using this thing? Do you really use this consistently for all your training? And my response nowadays is, since 2020 to 2023, it's kind of like the cutoff that I kind of put on it, I was using a Total Gym or Sauna Men's trainer for the vast majority and bulk of my resistance training at home. And I'm gonna get into kind of the background of that and just some key lessons. Not gonna go in crazy detail on this, but just some kind of key things I kind of learned from that experiment, from these machines. I still use them. First thing I realized right away was that basically everything does work. And I think I had the preconceived ideas before that you really needed all this gym equipment, especially if your goal was muscle building, muscle hypertrophy. And a common thing I heard from many people was, well, you can tone your body, you can kind of get a good workout, quote unquote, but you're not gonna be bodybuilder strong. And I didn't really know what that meant, because some people would accuse me of either not being big enough when I was using the machine. I need to go back to machines and go back to the gym. Or people would accuse me of being on some sort of substances, and then I was lying and I was doing other things on the side. Regardless, my point is there's nothing magic about this machine or anything you're doing when it comes to building muscle. Of course, you're gonna need things like progressive overload, and this machine definitely has that. You can increase the incline. I would jack the machine up on cinder blocks. I would add resistance bands, external free weights, weight vests, all sorts of stuff. So there's tons of ways to do progressive overload on this machine, let alone many other variables, such as slowing the tempo down, increasing the tempo. I learned that for me personally. I actually preferred kind of going at a faster cadence. It seemed to work for me. And even that was kind of breaking some paradigms to some people's minds, because they would say, you're going way too fast. You need to slow it down. And there's a lot of people promoting Total Gym stuff going super slow. Certainly that works too. But a big theme I was seeing results from it, certainly was feeling it. And that's the big thing to tell everybody, is that when you're doing any kind of thing, make sure you're feeling it in the desired body part you want to work. But aside from that, my point is, really, you can get these results from any sorts of tempo, any sorts of mode of exercise. I don't care if you had a adjustable dumbbells and a free weight bench or whatever, that would totally work for you. The problem that I would find with myself with the power blocks is that I could not adhere to it. It was not as interesting if I were to say stick with a pair of adjustable dumbbells and a bench to say work my whole entire body. This was a lot more interesting and fun. I feel like I was discovering new territory. This definitely has a skill component too, which I enforce to a lot of people if you're just picking up these machines and just doing it. Some people pick it up, even if they're used to going to the gym and going through basic foundational movement patterns. They jump on this and they're like, you know, it just feels weird, which I understand that too. But then there's some people who pick this up really easily. They get the movement patterns down, they can do basic pressing and rowing, they feel it in the desired body part versus just kind of like going through the motions and just kind of cyclically kind of just busting through various exercises. And then also just choosing effective exercises. On this machine, I've always been saying there's tons of nuanced exercise you guys can do in this and with any mode of exercise. But basically the other thing I would say was just stick to the basics. The main things I would do in this machine would just be basic pressing from various angles, horizontal and vertical pressing, basic rowing foundationally from basic rowing vertically and horizontally. And even for the back, I think just doing this shoulder adduction movements, kind of like almost like a swimming kind of breaststroke down, top to down, which is basically what a lat pull down is, except taking out the elbow. That was an excellent thing to do on here. Of course, pullovers, going into shoulder extension, great for your back. And then with the lower body, I would say this is where the machine kind of lacks. I mean, you certainly can get creative with doing single leg stuff, but I always would tell people, get off the machine, definitely do some foundational squatting or hinging or deadlifting patterns. If you got some resistance bands, adjustable dumbbells, those are cheap and easy alternatives that definitely complement something like this. And kind of wrapping up with the exercises, first off, again, this thing totally works. As with anything works, I don't care what mode you got, as long as you can kind of hit those foundational patterns, do progressive overload, and you can adhere to it, you're gonna have a recipe for success there. But when people say, well, why aren't you using this thing anymore? I had somebody over at my house, a friend, picking up some equipment, and he's like, you still using Total Gym? I'm like, yeah, of course I am. Right now the problem is, when you start having other stuff, one, it's hard to kind of leave this thing set up. If I had more space, I would leave it set up and I would probably jump on it more often. But again, I love exercises that just feel good. So now that I moved into a garage gym space, and believe it or not, as much junk as I'm accumulating and more stuff, you can't see behind the camera, I still can pull still can pull a car in here, and that's still my goal with this home gym. So That might change, but the point is the more toys you start including into your gym, the more this thing gets pushed out a little bit. And where I find this machine really does shine is in a workout such as this. I had very little time, and that's why I'm kind of talking fast. I'm sorry, I'm trying to record this kind of fast. I had little time to work out, so I did a couple other things, but I bust out the Total Gym and I can just string through exercises very quickly and using kind of minimal weight, but a higher rep range. And that's also a lesson I learned, is that higher reps, lighter loads definitely do work. And again, I learned that lesson from many people that even early on in my kind of training career, I was working at a gym that was an upscale gym, and there was a trainer there who was in good shape. He trained a lot of like high-end clients. For the gym I was training in, people were paying like $125 plus dollars a session. And this guy's whole thing was he would give people like 5 or 10 pounds, almost like the classical like Eugene Sandow dumbbell thing, and you cannot let go of them the whole time. And you'd do these like kind of slower movements, and you would fatigue yourself really quickly with light weight, doing higher repetitions, moderate kind of, I'd say slower pace. But I kind of rolled my eyes at the time, feeling like, well, I need heavier loads, I need heavier weight. And not to say that you don't get that here, because it's all relative to your weight. There are many exercises on here where you can get to pretty much near failure in less than 10 repetitions. There's many instances and ways you can do that. But 9 times out of 10, the rep range for me was like 15 to 20, sometimes beyond that. And when I found that worked excellent for me, using that rep range, it was a higher rep range, lower intensity. And my point back to that trainer was he would have people not let go of the weights. And that was kind of maybe a gimmick thing for him. But with this machine, you're always under, I always feel, constant tension, especially if you're doing like upper or lower body exercises. Because I would do an upper body exercise, when I still kind of do recommend that, upper and lower splits on this thing, where I would go to like one exercise, chain right to the next. So my hands and my just grip was always working. I felt like my arms, as just the limbs themselves, were always moving, always doing something. There was really never a dull moment. So in that, say, of average of like 30 to 40 minutes, I was always moving my body. I would rest and go right back to the next thing. Granted, I was not doing, I'm saying maybe higher volume, but it was not like heaps and heaps of sets. I wasn't doing like 5 different exercises of the chest for like 5 different sets. Sometimes I might do multiple sets for one exercise, but I would stick to those fundamentals and I would just kind of cycle through it, like push, pull arms, maybe some abs thrown in that mix, and just kind of going in this cycle. And that seemed to work excellent for me, and just kind of going through a basic routine that wasn't really stuck on some sort of set program. And that was my final wrap up on here, is that when you have something like this, I think it invites you to get more intuitive and more kind of like a flow-based approach to your workouts, which I prefer. And I will say that's one negative thing I can say. As I've added more stuff and you have more options to you, you start taking advantage of these things. I made a whole video about that. My workouts have kind of slowed down, so not a little bit, and because I'm reviewing and trying different things. By the new year, I got some new goals I'm going to be setting for myself. I'm going to kind of get back to the basics a little bit with the Total Gym and some other stuff, but really sticking back to that intuitive-based kind of flow type approach, where I'm just focusing on, if I'm trying to do an exercise, whether it's chest, back, arms, whatever, doing whatever I can to stress and stimulate that muscle, regardless if that's intensity, tempo, whatever that might be. So those are kind of an overall summary of what I learned. Basically, that these machines definitely work. You got to be consistent with it. Make sure it's interesting. Stick to those foundational patterns. Make sure it's interesting to you, like I said, because if it's not, you're not going to stick with it, and this thing's just not going to work. And definitely don't do something that's uncomfortable. But I can tell you right now, I don't care if it's this. You can apply this to really anything. If you got some sort of versatile tool for resistance training that you can stick with, and again, progressive overload, I promise you guys will see results. Just don't spin your wheels. Every exercise should be kind of pushing yourself. Point where you feel that you're being definitely worked. You leave that workout feeling like I really put in some sort of effort and not just sitting on there going through a cookie cutter template and just following what's on the piece of paper or say a Total Gym card or program, whatever. So that's it, guys. Any questions or comments on that, let me know. Just kind of an update of sorts and just some major key things I learned using a Total Gym for 3 years. Definitely can build your body, but that goes for essentially any tool that's out there that hits those things I just covered. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you on the next video.